All right, everybody, welcome back into Cherry Picking. Today's episode, we're looking at 5 must-draft goalies. We're getting near the hockey season, obviously, and I'm not going to be telling you guys to draft Ilya Sorokin, Igor Shesterkin, Andrei Vasilevsky, or really anyone in the top 7. There's definitely a couple guys circling the top 10 that I'll be talking about in this show, but a few guys down the list for sure. And then really just looking at these must-draft goalies, we're looking at teams that have really solid defensive cores, playing in pretty shitty divisions, and then obviously a forward lineup that has a couple two-way forwards as well. So let's get into these top 5. All right, so the first guy we're going to be looking at, Juuse Saros on the Nashville Predators. This guy is obviously in the top 10, one of the best goalies in the NHL right now, but still around that 8, 9, 10 mark right now, and I think he can even be a little bit higher this season heading into the year. You know, one thing with Saros, he's gotten a decent amount of wear and tear on him, playing 131 games, but Nashville doesn't really seem like they're going away from him. Sure, they have Kevin Lankinen as his backup right now, but they're actively trying to move Askarov during the NHL draft, trying to move up in the draft, who's supposed to be this top prospect goalie that they're using to bring in after Saros is kind of done here. So this decor of Roman Josi, Ryan McDonough, Tampa Bay really struggled when they lost Ryan McDonough, and he's been a huge help for Nashville already. Tyson Barrie, Dante Fabro, and then adding Luke Schenn as well. So that's a really solid decor. And then you also have solid two-way forwards. Leading that charge is Ryan O'Reilly. Saros also just super talented goalie. His current ADP is right at like 50 right now, right around the 4th or 5th round in 12-man leagues. Hellebuck is going before him, and I'd much rather have Saros, to be honest, in that light. Looking at his stats last year, he had 33 wins, tied with Vitek Vanacek for the 7th most wins amongst goalies. Plays in the Central. That's obviously a pretty weak division. I'd say probably the weakest division in the NHL at this point because it's super top-heavy with Colorado, Dallas, and Minnesota, but also includes fucking Chicago, Arizona, St. Louis, and even Winnipeg, who I think's due for a down year. So Juuse Saros, one of my top goalies heading into this year, apart from those top 3 that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. All right, the next guy we're going to be looking at, Filip Gustavsson on the Minnesota Wild. Obviously, they have Marc-Andre Fleury there, but I think he's going to take the reins from Fleury, at least what it sounds like from what Bill Guerin, the general manager, has said at this point. He just extended Gustavsson, and he said if he plays really well, he'll be getting another deal later on at 27, 28, and a deal that's probably going to be much more expensive. He was the 7th best goalie, or 7th best when it comes to goals saved above expected last year, higher than Ottinger, Samsonov, Georgiev. Also had a really low goals against average at almost around just around 2 flat. The Wild, kings of owning these two-way forwards, right? Obviously, Joel Eriksson comes to mind when you're thinking about them. Ryan Hartman, too, a really good defensive forward that they have. And then possess like a really defensive decor led by Jared Spurgeon. You have Jacob Middleton, big D-man who blocks a lot of shots. Jonas Brodin, Kalen Addison, Alex Goligoski, and now Brock Faber coming over from Minnesota, a guy that was part of one of the top NCAA teams last season. He went through a stretch last year, too, where he had 6 straight wins and allowed just 9 goals against, and that included one game where he allowed 4 goals. It was actually against Anaheim Ducks, but still, Gustafsson can be super streaky, really hot, and then there's also throughout the rest of the season, other than maybe the playoffs, he was super consistent as well. I think he'll get a bulk of the opportunities here. He was top 8, or this team was top 8 in expected goals against, so there's not going to be a lot of defense or a lot of offensive opportunities when you play against the Minnesota Wild regardless, and then pair that with his talent, and he'll be fantastic. All right, the third guy on my must-draft goalies list is Jeremy Swayman. Actually, his ADP is around 51.5, so we're in that 4th, 5th round range as well. Swayman going in the same vicinity as Juuse Saros. I think I'd rather have Saros just because he's a confirmed starter and has been playing in the league a little bit longer, but it's hard to ignore how good Jeremy Swayman was last year, especially at the end of the year. He played unbelievable in his 33 starts, logging 24 wins and just 6 losses in regulation. He had a 73% win percentage, which is nuts. I think there's absolutely a chance he can take over the net from Linus Ullmark. Ultimately, they're going to ride the hot hand, and because he's younger, I think he has a little bit more upside. He finished 10th in goals saved above expected for the regular season. If you look at March 1st to April 30th, he finished 3rd in goals saved above expected, only behind Igor Shesterkin and Juuse Saros, and we saw a slight power shift at the end of the regular season. Ullmark also didn't play that great in the playoffs against Florida, which led to Boston's first-round exit. Boston was also the 2nd best in terms of chances allowed with a really tight defensive core. Their expected goals against was 2nd best in the NHL at 2.77. So I think Jeremy Swayman has a lot of upside. I think taking him a little bit later in rounds offers better value than taking Ullmark a lot earlier. All right, now looking at some goalies going further in drafts or deeper in drafts, we're looking at Thatcher Demko on the Vancouver Canucks. His ADP is 97 right now, so going much later than those first 3 goalies that I kind of listed. I think Vancouver will be much more competitive this year. The Pacific has some weak spots for sure that they can take advantage of. And for a goalie going in the 8th round, I'd love to have Thatcher Demko. Looking at some of the other guys going around this spot, Tristan Jarry, Pittsburgh's defense is not going to be good this year. They're going to allow a lot of offensive opportunities and a lot of goals. Marc-Andre Fleury, who's I think is going to be backing up Filip Gustavsson, and then Stuart Skinner as well. So he'd be my top choice. Thatcher Demko, that is, out of those 3 goalies. His D-corps should be a lot better. It certainly was at the end of last year. When you look at the last 2 months, it also shows. He had the 5th best goals saved above expected with a .920 save percentage over that span as well. And now the Canucks D lineup, apart from Tyler Myers, who should honestly retire from the game of hockey altogether, you have Quinn Hughes, Carson Soucy, Ian Cole, Filip Hronek. That's a pretty solid top 4, I'd say. And they get to play in the Pacific that I mentioned, one of the weaker divisions. A lot of bottom feeders in that division right now. So I think that Thatcher Demko will definitely have a much better year, bounce back year. Hopefully he can play the whole season. All right, so the last goalie we're going to be looking at for these must-draft goalies, Cam Talbot, ADP 172 right now, so going in the 13th, 14th round. So it might be tough seeing Cam Talbot on this list considering he's like 50, but if you're in your deeper leagues, definitely provides a lot more value. This LA team is also built so well, in my opinion. You have veterans like Kopitar and Deneau on their for their forwards, and then looking at their back end, which feature Drew Doughty, Mikey Anderson, Matt Roy, Gavrikov, who they picked up in the Korpisalo trade last year too, and then Brant Clark, who should be playing in this top 6 when the season starts. He's going late for a reason. It's still Cam Talbot, but look at Korpisalo's numbers when he got traded from Columbus to LA, a horrible defensive team to a very good one. Korpisalo went from 33rd best goals saved above expected from October 1st to the end of January to the 11th best goals saved above expected and top 15 save percentage from March 1st to the end of April. So essentially when he got traded from LA to the end of the regular season. Phoenix Copley too, he was never good in the NHL before going to LA, and last year he had months where he was one of the better goalies in the NHL. So if you can get Cam Talbot in the 13th or 14th round, he can get 20 to 25 wins. That's massive upside and a huge deal. All right, thank you guys for tuning in. Let me know what you thought of these 5 must-draft goalies. Let me know who you're targeting later on in the rounds in terms of goaltending. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.